I find that bookbinders can obsess about the most unimportant things. One of these things is spine lining material, such as scrim, super, crash or mull, and the other is fine or thin reinforcing materials such as cotton and linen fabric, and the much more expensive versions, Fraynot and Aerolinen. Most of us aren't conserving the Book of Kells, and if you don't have easy access to materials specifically marketed for bookbinding, a visit to your local fabric store will provide you with perfectly acceptable replacements. It's also perfectly acceptable to cut up old bed sheets and shirts, but I'd only use these if you can confirm they're natural fibres. I went online to one of the big chain stores selling fabric in Australia and picked 6 fabrics I thought would be worth trying out. And then I went to the store to get some and was confronted with aisle upon aisle of fabric and a disinterested shop assistant who was not going to help me locate these fabrics. I'm not going to tell you which store it was because I highly recommend avoiding them. Every time I go there, it makes me think fondly of visiting the dentist. I could only find 4 of them, and these were tail end of bolts, which I picked because they normally give a discount for these. Not the woman that refused to help me locate them. She charged me full price, even for the stained bits, and she measured every centimetre, even the ratty, wrinkled, frayed ends. I swore once again never to go back there. Let's first look at scrim, also known as mull, super or crash, depending on where you came from and who your teacher was. When I first started bookbinding, I called it mull, and these days I mostly say scrim, and I've never really used the other two. So what is it? According to Bookbinding and the Conservation of Books, a dictionary of descriptive terminology, under mull it says, an English term for the coarse, loosely woven cotton fabric used primarily to line the spines of edition bindings, also called crash or super. Johnson says, mull is an open weave cotton material stiffened with size. Alone, it is weak, but reinforces any material to which it is attached by an adhesive. The bottom line is that it's a light cotton material, stiffened usually with starch. Until recently, hand bookbinders in Australia have used Silver Star powdered laundry starch for making paste. It's now very difficult to obtain. It has reached the point you're better off just buying refined wheat starch from Carly Anderson in Sydney, and I'll list suppliers in other parts in the description. But I bought out the last store I found Silver Star in and have enough to last me many years. I mix up a batch following their instructions, 3 tablespoons to 1 litre of water, and there's some detail in there too. I then put a piece of each fabric into the starch water and make sure it's all saturated. I then take it outside and let it hang dry. I don't wring it out like you would if using it on clothes. Once it's dry, I iron it. I checked at our supermarket and the only starch they had was spray-on in a pressure can. I tried this following the instructions, and I also used the leftover Silver Star mix to spray on and iron right away. Neither of these produced good results. The bottom line is that all the different light cottons I treated with the powdered laundry starch came out excellent. They now cut easily with a knife and ruler and will be stronger than traditional scrim thanks to the higher thread counts. Now I'm sure you're wondering if cotton or linen, as in from flax, is better. Which is stronger? A well-known bookbinder, Bill Minter, did a groundbreaking study into this question. He taped pieces of linen and cotton to the inside hinge of Emil's grocery store door, which opened and closed many times a day, to find out which had the better fold endurance. He found cotton to have the better fold endurance. 20 years later, some boffins in Oxford did the same sorts of tests with expensive Aerocotton and Aerolinen and found, well, the same thing. Actually, they measured lots of stuff, and if you want to geek out, the reference is in the description. One of their conclusions was that all the fabrics tested were strong and durable and suitable enough for conservation treatments. I would suggest that based on their research, I would expect all quality cotton or linen fabrics with suitable characteristics would be fine for bookbinding. When I was young, I was told scrim was like the Rio in concrete. A bit of steel made concrete so much stronger, and I'm sure that's true with scrim, as Johnson says. But in the recent Stuart Brockman video, he says anything with such a low thread density can't be that strong, and thus they use finely woven cotton, like what I've been showing in this video. Stuart did mention the specific brand of cotton he used, and being an obsessive bookbinder, I immediately tried to find it in Australia. Then I reminded myself, it's just cotton. Now let's put tradition and standard practice aside and think about this weakness of scrim. You can see it tears easily, well, often easier in one direction. Can anything be done about this? I've seen and heard people in the book conservation world recommending cutting reinforcing fabrics on the bias at 45 degrees to the warp and weft threads. In the standard configuration, only the warp or weft threads cross the fold at the joint. But if you cut on the bias, both the warp and weft threads cross the joint. In theory, you expect this to give the fabric strength and a higher fold endurance. But despite expectations, the boffins in Oxford found the bias direction was the weakest in both the tensile and folding endurance tests, and it had other problems as well. So, for tight woven cotton or linen, both can be used in either the warp or weft direction, and if you want to know about whether you should wash before you use, you'll need to read the article. I'm fine using unwashed fabric. You'll have noticed I've avoided talking about technical fabrics such as non-woven polyester, such as Tyvek, Holitex or Rimae. These are often used by bookbinders and conservators. I do use them, but mainly as barrier materials. I'm not a fan of putting fully synthetic materials in books. They can be okay as a parchment substitute where no adhesive is involved, and it's a lot cheaper than parchment. If I was going to use it in a binding, I would only use the name brand ones I mentioned. But this video is about substitutes for more difficult to find materials, and these name brand polyesters are in the same category as bookbinding specific fabrics. I should say something about how thick or thin the substitute material should be. It should be thin. Denim is too thick. The scrim I use is 0.4 millimeters thick. I would recommend not using anything much thicker than this, and preferably thinner. Let's set an arbitrary maximum thickness of 0.5 millimeters. For comparison, Frey-Knot is about 0.15 millimeters thick. The Jasonet starched calico I use is 0.25 millimeters, and the repair linen is 0.3 millimeters thick. Another good substitute, which is often used by bookbinders, is long fibred paper, such as washi, Japanese quality paper. Washi is commonly used by bookbinders and conservators for spine lining and guarding. But there are so many types made by so many small makers, and there's so many different weights, and there's different plant fibres. Finding the right one makes finding scrim look easy. And in my tests, I only used cotton, but I regularly buy linen and use it, usually unstarched, as it's usually a bit thicker and thus stiffer naturally. I buy the unbleached natural coloured linen. I always wait for when it's on sale, and it wasn't on sale when I was at the shop, and thus why I didn't have any in the tests. I avoid synthetic fabrics, including blends, because I worry about adhesion, especially with pastes, and I worry about long-term stability. I fully expect many of these synthetic fabrics to reach 10 or 20 years old and then just fall apart. I know that's not going to happen to cotton or linen. The technical fabrics like Tyvek and Rimae are different. I expect these to last a long time. As long as natural fibres, I guess 100 years will tell. So that's it. For anyone having trouble finding scrim, mull, crash or super, just substitute any thin cotton or linen that you can get your hands on. And it'll be easier to work if you stiffen it with starch. And if you can't find refined starch, you can use wheat or rice flour, Remember, we're not conserving the Book of Kells. I hope you found something useful in today's video. As always, I really appreciate you hitting the big thumbs up button. If you're able and want to, you can support the making of more videos like this through Patreon or with a one-off contribution, and the details are in the description below. If you want to be notified of my future videos, please hit the subscribe button. Until next time, cheerio.